Hello, Tom LaVecchia here with the New Theory Podcast. We have all of our guests are special, but this guest we would have find as special-er. Nidava Mattsson of Her Magazine, founder and publisher. And the reason why she's special-er, if that's a word, is because she's in the fellow publishing space. And we already collaborated on one article, and we're looking at doing further collaborations downstream. Nidava, how's it going?
Going good. I was just saying, I love the way you say my name. It's like with an accent, Nineveh. It's like with a flair. So it's fabulous. Thank you.
There you go. All right. So we'd like to start off. Give us your formative years and what makes you you.
So my background's actually in broadcast news. I worked in the industry for over 10 years, and I was one of those people growing up that really didn't know what they wanted to do with their life, to be honest with you. It wasn't like I sat in front of a TV and said, oh, I want to be on TV someday. I want to be an anchor. I want to be a reporter. And so during my teenage years, I was kind of a rebel, had the dark lipstick, black nail polish. I always say goth, but more of a grunge, listen to Nirvana, The Doors. I'm just painting this picture of what it was like. I was never the cheerleader, the popular girl in school or anything like that. And so I sort of just was stumbling through high school and life thinking, what am I going to do for the, quote, rest of my life? Because we're raised in a society that tells you that you have to choose one thing and do that forever. So it was really hard for me to pinpoint what I wanted to do forever. I knew that I always loved writing, but I didn't know how to incorporate that into a, quote, career. So, long story short, before I got into broadcast news, I was an esthetician. So I went to beauty school and I did that for a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
I did makeup and facials. And then one day I just sort of, thought to myself, I'm not happy. I don't want to do this. I went back to college and became a broadcaster. I discovered my passion for broadcast news, and I did that for about 12 years before I quit the business 2.5 years ago. So that's my background. That's what I'm all about. I've always been a storyteller. I love content. I'm obsessed with headline writing. So that's really my wheelhouse.
Okay, so you went to school to be an esthetician. Were you a little bit more, forgive me, but mud and cucumber, or were you more on the aesthetic side? Because I work with a lot of plastic surgeons. So you more on the aesthetic side or more on the skin side?
I was more on the aesthetic side, so there were definitely opportunities for me at the time to where I could work at a plastic surgeon's office. That's a little bit different as far as the estheticians that work at a plastic surgeon's office versus a fancy day spa. So I was working at a fancy schmancy day spa, doing, $150, $200 facials and makeup for brides and waxing, a lot of waxing. So yeah, more aesthetic than anything else.
Got it. Okay, so you had a penchant for beauty at that point. So when you say broadcast news, you were an anchor person, a weather person? Like what did you do?
No, not weather. I loved asking questions. I loved drilling people. So I was a news reporter first and foremost, and I was also a news anchor during my entire career. And I just sort of fell into that. And a lot of people describe that as teleprompter reading, but there's really an art to reading a teleprompter. Sure. So I did both.
Wait, I just got to caught myself. I'm like, I implied like, hey, were you, as a broadcaster, I implied a weather person. That's almost kind of sexist because you're female, So like, that's not right. I'm actually I'm self-policing here, so I apologize. But I did say person, though, so I covered myself, I guess, right? So with that being said, okay, so you got a broadcast, you had a medium. All right, because we're gonna have some fun. Digital media is. Oh God, I'm gonna be inappropriate for a second. Hope you don't mind. It's like an abusive spouse. Like you love them to death. Like you want to be with them. Like they're a good person. Like they're great. But once in a while, you just get the crap kicked out of you. I know that's really insensitive. I'm sorry, but that's the best way I can describe digital media. I hope I didn't offend you too much.
No, okay. I'm not easily offended. Trust me, I worked in news. Nothing offends me anymore.
So digital media I love, but I have a love-hate relationship with it. So why did you go into those shark-infested waters?
You know what? Honestly, I would describe that kind of relationship, what you're describing about digital media, the same goes for the news industry, okay? You have to be a little bit deep, dark, and disturbed to be a news reporter, honestly. Sure. And so there's sort of this like addictive nature about, I love you, but I hate you. Why do I love you so much? But honestly, during my career as a broadcaster, I remember when, the big social platform Facebook was first launched. And I remember, everyone in the newsroom saying, what is this all about? Is this legit? Like, how do we use this? How do we incorporate it? And it just really felt really natural for me to be social on social media while I watched other broadcasters around me really struggle with how to be authentic on social. I knew immediately, I think, again, it was just inherent to me that this was a different type of platform than TV news. With TV news, you always have to be serious. There is no room for personality. In fact, it's discouraged, although I think we're seeing some things change today. But for the most part, I mean, you're really not going to show personality when you're talking about murder, death, and destruction, a big fire, So it's just facts. And what I saw with digital was this opportunity to be more of myself, and it was intriguing to me. It was intriguing that I could do storytelling, but the way that I wanted to do it, instead of being put into a box, quite literally, looking a certain way, dressing a certain way, acting a certain way. So I'm obsessed with digital media because it allows you to be authentic. In fact, the marketplace wants you to be authentic.
Okay, so you wanted to kind of make a medium for women by women. Is that fair, with like kind of an unencumbered type?
Yeah, and I
message?
hope that's not sexist.
I know, right? All right. So
sexism. But we include men, by the way, because men definitely need a seat at the table when it comes to content surrounding women. So I came up with the idea when I was working in news. What I saw, honestly, was a huge opportunity in the digital space. And I thought, why is TV news why is the industry operating at such an archaic level? Why aren't we launching live shows online? Why aren't we doing podcasts? And I would go to my bosses and I would say, hey, I really want my own show, but I actually don't want it on TV. I'd rather it be streaming online. We could reach people internationally. We could then spin it off into a podcast. And they just looked at me dumbfounded, like it was the dumbest idea in the world. And, a lot of TV stations still haven't, to this day, adopted the philosophy of, hey, instead of just broadcasting live on the airwaves, why not just create offshoot shows and stream them online? Because that's where everybody is right now. And why don't they get into more of the digital space and digital media? Because that's the direction of where everything's going. So again, I just saw this unique opportunity. I thought, if they're not catching my vision, screw them. I'm going to go build this on my own. And that was a crazy thought in and of itself, because you know how hard it is to build a business.
Well, that's okay. So we're going to ask some questions, and obviously share as much as you're willing to share. If it's numbers, if you want to give exact numbers, give ranges. And if we delve into an area that's proprietary, obviously you're welcome to pull that card. So let's shoot. How did you? It's because it's not cheap. I'm in pretty deep in new theory, and I'm podcasting my way out of it, and I'll get to that in a second. But how did you get the startup capital to start up Her Mag?
Well, I'm super deep into it. So yeah, I'm completely transparent and honest. So while I was working in the news business, I'd come up with the idea of this concept of a digital magazine for women. I was completely and utterly miserable in the business. My father is actually an entrepreneur. So I was talking to him, and I had launched the first issue while I was working in TV. And I remember my bosses come to me. I hadn't told them I was going to do this. And they said, what the hell is this? You can't be doing this. You're breaking your contract by, creating something on the side. Is this a business? Do you have sponsors? And I'm thinking, no, it's just kind of a hobby, I think. Yeah. And then the second issue comes out. They bring lawyers into the picture, and I go, wow, these guys really think I'm something, don't they?
Wow.
And at the time, I thought it was just this silly, ugly-looking thing, to be honest with you, because I didn't have a designer at the time or anything like that. So I was talking to my father, who's been an entrepreneur for over 30 years now, and he's got an incredible story. He works in the tech industry, and he said, well, look, if you're really passionate about what you're doing, why don't you just come do some stuff for me? Do some social media for our company. No one's doing our social media. No one's doing our PR. No one's doing our marketing. So I thought, man, Dad, I haven't worked for you since I was 19 years old in high school, and I hated every minute because I was coloring these bubbles that I didn't understand what I was doing, which is boring, right?
Yeah.
So I said, look, I'm not going to be your employee. I'll be a consultant. I don't want to be an employee. I want to be an entrepreneur. So he was honestly my first client. So on the back end of, I thought it as a unique opportunity. I said, screw it. How much will you pay me to do the social media? I said, I'll pay you a couple of grand. So mind you, I went from making, a really good salary to basically making $24,000 a year.
Wow.
Back to my college days. So it wasn't like Dad came to the rescue and said, hey, I'm going to throw all this money into your venture.
Yeah.
He said, well, why don't you kind of figure this out and, maybe you can add more value to the company and you can get paid more later because we'll have bigger needs in the marketing and PR and media department, and that's your wheelhouse. So I took a risk and I said, fine. I walked in one day to my boss's office and I basically said, I hate it here. You're fired. I'm not fired. You're fired. I don't quit. You're fired. So I left, and then now my father's company is one of our clients, but we have many other clients that we do social media marketing for, marketing strategy, public relations. So on the back end, that's how I've been able to make my money to be able to fund this crazy passion of mine that is the magazine. And we're finally getting sponsors in. So that sponsorship money is starting to take over as well. But it took me, I'm now 2.5 years in, technically, since the time I came up with it. So it's self-funded, but I had a unique opportunity where my father's an entrepreneur and he offered me this, hey, you can work from home, just do our social media, and then it just kind of built up from there. But it's really what I needed to take that leap of faith.
Okay, I have so many questions. Let me start off with, what was your original charter? Were you going to be print? Were you going to be a digital magazine? Were you going to be a dynamic website, kind of like an Elite Daily with continuous blogging? What was your initial plan at launch?
At launch, so originally our magazine was actually called something totally different, and a blog just went up on our website today, and I talk about the journey, exactly this, and I show the first cover that we ever came out with, and it was called UMag at the time, and it was something that I had personally designed myself in Pages on an iPad, okay?
Nice.
And it was like, I was miserable about it. It was like, oh, I need a designer. So at the time we were quarterly. And I really didn't have this grand vision of what was I going to do. I knew that I wanted a huge digital publication, but I also knew that I wanted to get into podcasting, live shows, everything media that you could imagine, right? Because these things are really expensive. So we had to grow really like incrementally because, and I want to talk about this too. Like there's this idea out there that people just become successful overnight, but you have to follow the money because at the end of the day, like you may have started with $500 with your venture, but as you get deeper into building your business, there are a lot of costs associated with running a business. So it's not something that you can do on $100 and then just like blow up overnight. It doesn't work that way. So the vision was digital media, owning a media company myself, and bringing in talent that were doing the shows. And we're getting closer and closer to that. So I don't want to reveal too much because we're about 90 days away from implementing some new things that we'll be introducing. So the digital magazine, honestly, is just one component of the bigger picture of building a digital media company.
Okay, so I want to make sure I filtered this correctly. You launched and you were going to come up with a magazine, whether it be quarterly, monthly, whatever, and then
it's monthly now.
Okay, monthly
so
now.
We went monthly a year ago, and we also have content that comes out every single day on our website. So I'm content obsessed.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I filtered this correctly. So you are following the continuation of a magazine format, and the output is a digital magazine that I can read on, my iPad, Nook, etc. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so we've got an app in iTunes and Google Play, and that's where the monthly magazine is hosted. But we also, like you had mentioned, Elite Daily, we also release web content that's exclusive to the web every single day. That's all our free content. The magazine is sort of like that, premier publication. It's just, it actually puts you into a whole different realm than just having a website with content, so it's a very important piece of the company because when you say, oh, I own a magazine, people go, ooh, I'm a blogger. You know what I mean? So this is just is part of the strategy. It's part of the strategy to have the monthly magazine because that is what's attracting big time sponsors because people love to be on the cover. They love to say that they were in a magazine instead of, oh, I was on this website. But we do have a website as well that has content that is absolutely awesome.
Okay, so now your digital version, if I want it for print, is it not available or they can do print on demand?
We're looking at print on demand. We're also in the process of incorporating it into our website because we realize, and this is sort of the path of being an entrepreneur, you realize, oh, this magazine can't just be in iTunes and Google Play because there's a whole section of the population that actually doesn't access apps. They just want everything on mobile. And so we're integrating it onto mobile and looking at a print on demand. And I've actually toyed around with the possibility of being in print someday because I don't think print is dead depending on what your product is, Okay. I think there's still a unique opportunity when it comes to print. And it sets you up differently. I think with the digital space, what can happen is it's really crowded, right? Everybody and their mother has a magazine. Everybody's got a podcast. Everybody's a somebody in the digital world, right?
True. Now, okay, so what's your revenue model? Is it subscription-based, ads in the magazine? I know AdSense is a joke, but are you doing some like maybe ads or branded content? Give us your revenue model and breakdown percentage-wise, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that originally I thought that I would make all my money on subscriptions off of what was happening in iTunes and Google Play.
Yeah.
That's not where the money is, although we charge for the monthly magazine. We're toying around with just going completely freemium on everything. Okay. I go back and forth on that, trying to decide whether or not to charge more because that revenue coming in from the subscriptions is so minuscule to me that I don't see that it's scalable because people aren't willing to pay for content. So the direction that we've gone in, which took me a long time to wrap my head around, was yes, absolutely branded content, minimal ads. I do not do AdSense because we consider ourselves like a luxury high-end magazine brand. So I don't want to dilute it by any means. So we generate our revenue through sponsorship, branded content, and like minimal ad space within the articles. And on the back end of that, we own a company called Her Media. And the biggest revenue is coming from clients, right, that are using our company for services like creating digital magazines for them, doing social media branding and management for them, doing press releases and press release distribution for them because we're a media company. So we've kind of got a unique model, but that's really what's helped bolster our revenue in the last year.
All right. So actually you could probably help me with this question. So X Factor Media is the parent company of New Theory. So I have my agency side and we're super boutique and we're very heavy in the health and beauty, particularly plastic surgeons. The reason why I started New Theory out of frustration of paying Google so much money, you're paying other, frankly, paying for branded content or paying for articles or paying for content. And I'm like, well, why can't I pay myself? And we launched New Theory. It was Insider Magazine, but we didn't want to get sued. So we did New Theory, newtheory.com. And we were going to do a print magazine. We had Jonathan Chabin, photo shoot, the whole nine. We abandoned print. We're revisiting the digital version, which I think we're going to do. But for the most part, we're following more the Elite Daily model of having just kind of millennial focused content. And I'm podcasting. I told you I'm podcasting out of necessity. Well, I love it, but out of necessity because I had a staff of 8. Now I'm down to 3, and I saw my agency side. And I'm not great at writing, but I'm great at interviewing, I think. So that's why I kind of did podcasting out of like legit like fight or flight. So my question to you is, I toy with the idea of merging it under one umbrella, But is it weird if I do PR for you and I get you a placement in another, my magazine, of course, because that's easy, but then get you placements in others? Is that in the long run a distraction from the core of her media, her magazine, or is it no, fuck this, I gotta eat, I need that retainer, who cares where I place them, I gotta eat, and I need that money to grow her media? Where do you stand on that?
I need to eat.
Yeah,
So here's the thing, right? What happens is, I think we get lost in the fantasy that our digital media is going to make us so much money, and that doesn't happen immediately. You have to grow the audience, right? And in order to grow the audience, you need a little bit of funding, of course, to grow your email list, to generate, some PPC, some traffic. Organic is always better, but we definitely spend money on PPC. So that money has to come from somewhere. I mean, our strategy's been this last year with the magazine coming out monthly is aligning ourselves with influencers who have a big base that can cross promote. So we actually do contracts with all of our covers. We do contracts that have clear stipulations about how they're going to promote, how often, where they're going to promote, so that they understand that this is serious. And that's ever since we've implemented that strategy, the magazine has been more front and center. However, I think that the magazine and the media that we're creating is honestly our marketing tool. It's our marketing tool. So this is the way I look at it. You hire a brand agency. They say they know how to brand. They say they know how to do PR. They say they know how to do all these things, but have you ever done it for yourself? So how do I really know you know how to do it? So for us, we say, the proof is in the pudding. If you want to hire our parent company, Her Media, to manage your accounts, hey, take a look at our own brand. Take a look at what we've created with this. It creates an immediate trust and authority of they clearly know what they're doing. So from a sales process, that's making it very simple and easy for us to bring on clients, because Her Magazine is also almost like our marketing tool on the front end for what we're doing on the back end as an agency.
Okay.
Will the model always stay that way? I'm not sure. Will they be separate? I mean, these are the things that you try to figure out as you go along as an entrepreneur. We never want to do too much, right? So I'm not going to say, oh, we build websites too. Oh, we do SEO too. I'll never do that. We're going to stick with the media wheelhouse. And in the media wheelhouse, it's creating content. Public relations is absolutely a part of that. Digital ads is absolutely a part of that. Content writing and social media is absolutely a part of that. But we're going to just stay right in that bubble instead of trying to do too much, right? Trying to be a jack of all trades.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so now I want to be a client, right? And I want to advertise in your magazine, and I might want to do some branded content, and then maybe even add on your website. However, I like you, and I want you to maybe, do my digital PR, and I might want you to manage my social media. Are you, one entity with, if you don't mind, with DBAs, or are you two separate entities? Like, how would that handle to the client interface?
So we're we have our LLC, but our DBA is Her Media. And the way that I look at Her Magazine, it's a product of ours. Okay, it's a product. And it's a product that can be offered to the client if their interest is being put in front of the female audience. Then we'll incorporate the magazine, the website, and all our social channels as part of their strategy for whatever they come with. But I'll tell you what, our clients typically don't have anything to do with the magazine, and our sponsors have everything to do with the magazine. We build out a strategy. So if they want branded content, we have all sorts of different packages, and then we'll also customize for them. So it just depends on what their budget is. So the interface is really, we have a sales staff. So we have 3 people. We have a senior marketing strategist, and underneath her are 2 other salespeople that are right now working on commission only, which is amazing for startup entrepreneurs because they see the vision. And so they go out there and they hustle and they set up meetings, and I'm very much involved in those meetings. But we don't bother with clients who don't have big budgets. So part of our strategy also has been going to the agencies themselves who have paying clients already, who have money, and saying, hey, we've got this digital media product. We know your clients want to be featured and stuff. That's what you guys do as an agency. Let's work something out on the back end and buy some sponsored content in bulk from us for your clients. And that's worked out way better than trying to generate leads individually with small businesses.
Well,
I hope I answered your question.
Well, one thing you did, but one thing I struggle with, and I always say, if people listen in this long, either it's your family member or a stalker. But either way, people that are still listening at this point are interested. And the thing I struggle with right now is our average retainer on the marketing side, I'll call it marketing, is $4,000 a month, right? It's not that profitable because you factor in SEO, and you're smart by staying away from SEO. Once you factor in SEO, some of the PPC we got to spend, staff, overhead, you're talking at best a 20% net margin, right? However, on the media side, which is New Theory, our average spend is maybe $1,000 if somebody spends money with us, but it's like all profit. But it's not recurring and it's not residual. So is there a way to marry that where you can maybe get recurring revenue on the magazine side? Because I haven't found a way to do that. Like, for example, I usually refer people to our magazine side to people that don't have big budgets and are willing to do a one-off versus marketing side, bigger budgets and commit. I may be doing that wrong. But where do you stand on the marketing side where it's recurring, it's a nice monthly, but it's a lot of work and less margin versus the magazine is all margin, but it's not recurring? Have you found a way to work around the non-recurring nature of media?
I think that's the biggest struggle because I think entrepreneurs love the idea of reoccurring revenue, which is something you should strive for, and this fantasy land of passive income. But you have to have a product that will produce reoccurring revenue. And the reason why I originally went with a digital magazine in iTunes and Google Play, even though they take 30% of my profit, is, and by the way, that's how much they take, is 30%. Ideally, we'd want to make that through subscriptions, right? So that all our subscribers are paying, and that's the reoccurring revenue for us. But we'd have to scale at a huge number, right, in terms of paying subscribers versus free users for that to be a reoccurring. One of the other things that we're looking at is wrapping in membership into our site. And a membership is, like, I think a couple of other digital media companies are doing this as well, where it's an individual sell, but they're charging anywhere between, $49 to $69 a month. That includes your subscription to the magazine. It includes access to the founder and this Facebook group and mentorship and awesome content and connection. And that can be that's something that we're looking into, like, deploying to be part of that reoccurring revenue model. But for us, we've been up against the clock where we need the revenue, even if it's a one-off or, 5,000 monthly, which, like you said, okay, your net profit's 20%. It's not very much, but that goes back into the magazine because I'm not sure how much it costs to produce a podcast, but the way that I built the magazine is with systems. We have writers, we have an editorial manager, we have a graphic designer. So we very much have quite a big overhead just to produce the thing. And in fact, people are looking at our brand and they're saying, okay, great. We're doing photo shoots with them. We're doing video shoots. We're operating like we're Vogue or something, And people sort of come to us and they have this expectation like, oh yeah, you're doing a photo shoot for us. And with influencers, we have to bite the cost and say, okay, we're not paying them to be part of the magazine, but in a way we are because we're creating that experience for them. But as far as the revenue model, ideally subscription, whether it comes from the digital magazine or building the tribe in the community that is willing to pay monthly to be part of the community. But if you do that, you will have to throw some live events because people absolutely expect some sort of live human connection out of that.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, What is your content strategy? One and two is are you staff writers, paid contributors, free contributors? Give us your content strategy and how do you satisfy that strategy?
So our content strategy, as far as the type of content that we deliver, we're very particular about. So the monthly magazine has a cover story. We have CEO spotlights towards women in business, early entrepreneurs, working women who have a side hustle and are thinking of starting their own business. So that's our demographic. So every piece of content that we produce on our website or in our magazine keeps our avatar or that woman in mind, saying, what does she want to read about? And that's how we select the content that we produce. We have a staff of paid freelance writers, so no one's full-time writing with us. We have freelance writers that we have contracts with that get paid a certain amount for regular content, and then I pay them a lot more if it's sponsored. That way they know that there's a benefit to them sticking on board at those kind of lower rates right now, since we're still technically a startup, right?
Yeah.
We have free contributors as well. And I love free content as long as it's good content. Another thing that we're looking at incorporating, which is something that Forbes has done, is people pay you to contribute on your platform. People pay you to establish themselves as an authority. And what that would come with is, let's say you're not the greatest writer, but you've got good ideas, then you get a dedicated editor that will go through your content and make sure that it's good. And then you can use that to leverage to build onto other platforms that you want to be on. If you want to be on like a Forbes or a Fortune or Entrepreneur magazine. But Forbes has a model where they have people pay them to contribute.
Yeah. That another word for that, you can create what's called an advisory board. And that advisory board, they pay to be on there. They get advertising, they get, obviously an email blast, they get, some obviously media around it, but they also contribute. And these are usually busy professionals or well-tailed professionals that you would write on their behalf and they would sign off. But it's pretty hefty, some of these advisory boards. Some of them run to the tune of $5,000 a month, and people willingly and happily pay it. So I've been toying with that as well. One thing we've been doing, I don't know if so you and I are the actual opposite, not in a bad way. I'm like a digital guy. So like I know how to get SEO. I know how to get, somewhat social media traffic. I know how to get traffic in. So we're doing between 60,000 to 100,000 a month without spending too much money on attracting paid traffic, right? And on the content side, I'm not bad because I do have an open contribution model. I know where to find cheap content that's quality. I know how to use infographics. I have great clients that are interesting, so we publish about them. But I'm more like, hey, I'm able to get people to show up, and I think a decent content provider. I think you're an excellent content provider because I look at your website, but how do you attract people into your theater? So that's the one thing I wanted to ask you, because you have some really great content, but how do you attract eyeballs?
So, as far as traffic goes?
Yeah, traffic to the website and subscription downloads.
We do a little bit of SEO,
Okay.
Although I'm not convinced about the company that we're using. SEO is sort of like this mystery to me. So that's great that's an asset of yours.
We'll talk afterwards. I'll help you out.
Yeah. So SEO I haven't quite mastered. PPC is really simple for me. So our strategy as far as downloads and traffic, generation is obviously you want it to be organic. So having as many people share it, but it's been a lot of PPC for us and a lot of influencers that share our content. So if an influencer is on the cover, that'll kick over like 30,000 visitors at least, just aligning ourselves with someone like that, right? I can always tell if someone has influence, right, by the kind of traffic that they kick over to me.
Got it. Yeah.
There's people out there that say they're influencers. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I'm like, you're full of crap. You're not an influencer. You absolutely have no influence. Because if you had influence, you kick some traffic over to me, but you really didn't,
Well, that's why as an SEO guy, I'm able to kind of deep dive in the back end and know who's the gamers and who's not. And then on the social media side, there's some tools to see, if they're real followers or not. So that makes sense. You got the social route. Yeah, the SEO on your site. We'll talk offline because I think there's an area to improve there, especially since you have some great content. Because that's the thing. People say content is king, content is emperor, but it's not enough just to create great content. You need some eyeballs on there. Okay, so here's the other thing too. I don't like to buy traffic. I don't like to, but I'm realizing the more people I talk to, you just have to. Like for me to get to 100,000 visitors a month, I have to buy traffic. I don't have a choice. I'm trying to get over it, but I don't have a choice. How much percentage of your traffic is bought? Because I'm finding out that it's a necessary evil in this game. But I want to hear your thoughts.
I know, and I'm the same with you, where I come from the philosophy of, and my father's always told me this. He says organic is the best. So he operates 2 websites, and between the 2, he gets at least 1.5 million visitors a month, all organic, no PPC.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm going, oh my God, how do I get that kind of traffic? And he's like, shares, organic, organic. And so this word organic is such a mystery, but I think that was so 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, but real quick, Nina, hold on. But organic's never free. You got to hire a guy like me for $5,000 a month to get you there. So that's the perception. So here's the thing, right? Real quick, sorry, because this is important to me. People think organic is free. It's actually the opposite. Organic is very expensive because you pay. The other thing is social media people think is free, but if you got a great social media program, you have a graphic designer, you have to boost some of the ads, and frankly, you need a content curation. So none of this is ever free, and you probably know that all too well.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, because even organic, and you're absolutely correct on that, is don't forget the work that's happening on the back end to create that quote unquote organic traffic, meaning let's say you're aligning with influencers and you guys are sharing each other's content. Well, that takes time, right, to foster those relationships, to build that on the back end, to curate the content, and your time is money. So it's all costing you money regardless of what you're doing. With PPC, at least you can control, or you know what your pay per click is, what your click through rate is. I would say at first, a year ago, 100% of our traffic was paid, and I'm not ashamed to say that, but we had to. I mean, organically, like 50 visitors a day? That's nothing. That's pathetic. And if we wanted to get sponsors, we had to show the numbers first. So it was an investment on our part, right? Yeah. I would say about I would say we're looking at 70% of our traffic is still paid, and 30% is now organic as it's starting to build. And one of the things about bringing on sponsors is that you can use that money to create more traffic for yourself, to deliver the results that you promised.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, because one thing we do is, the reason why I say we have such a bandwidth of 60,000 to 100,000, the months we do 100,000, people that do branded content or any ads or anything of the like, we use part of, which you and I are probably dumb or we're smart, well, remains to be seen, but we take part of that money to drive the traffic to the site. Where
100%.
Where we're like the only people in the world that does that. And there's reasons to and reasons not to. So that makes sense. Hey, here's a $5,000 campaign. Sometimes I even put in writing, X amount, or give a kind of handshake amount on how much it's going to go towards boosting just that article to guarantee them the impressions. So, so all that makes sense. What do you do when people want traffic numbers? Because as an SEO guy, I don't like to give out my analytics, because a super smart guy like me could kind of reverse engineer things. So let's just say I'm like, hey, Nineveh, I want to see, your numbers, and I love you, but like your magazine is not super optimized. So digitally, like if I use the tools that are out there, it may not look so good. So if I come to you and I want to feel more confident about your traffic and your numbers, what do you show them?
Well, we show them whatever they want, right? Okay. So if they want to see the back end of our analytics, I'm happy to take a snapshot. However, they need to understand that it just depends on how much money we're putting into traffic at the time. So we'll say like, okay, we've had 35,000 downloads, and when we have a meeting, we say, but please keep in mind that we can manipulate this, if that's the right word to use. So when people say, where's your readership? And I say, it's anywhere you want it to be. what do you mean? I'm like, that's the beauty of digital ads,
Yes.
then, right?
Yes.
You can target where people are having a really difficult time wrapping their head around that. They're going, well, no. Explain your distribution to me. I said, okay, well, most of our readership is out of New York, then it's LA, then it's Salt Lake City, which is where we're headquartered out of. So naturally, we have a readership here in Salt Lake, but it's New York, LA, Salt Lake City as far as the top 3 US cities that we generate traffic out of. And then we also have readers out of Australia and the UK and Russia, randomly, China, some of these other places. But let's say somebody said, well, oh, you have no traffic out of Dallas. Well, I'm a client out of Dallas. Well, it doesn't matter what my quote unquote organic traffic is, because I can take that sponsorship money and drive the traffic down to the exact location that you want. So that's the difference between print and digital, and people need to wrap their heads around that. We're not a magazine that is completely held hostage by the zip codes in our area. We have the entire world as our oyster.
Well,
what they need to realize is print is you're still paying to play, right? That company is paying printing fees and postal fees to reach a certain audience. Here's the problem. That data is crap. In my opinion, you don't really know how many people you're reaching through print. You can only guesstimate the impressions based on how many deliveries you're making. But with digital, you can't lie, right?
Yep. Well, just real quick, I don't mean to cut you off because I was like, all right, I said to somebody once, if you want to sell a stroller to a mommy who's sitting on a park bench in Central Park West, we can do that, and we can do geofencing, we can do all that. And for a while, I was doing just a straight CPM, saying, hey, pay us $10 per CPM. How many people you want to reach? And we'll just make it happen. But just buyers were not able to really wrap their head around that. So what is your pricing strategy?
It's the same thing. So it's minimally $1,000. So we do that geofencing. We have a product on the back end where we can do even targeted email blasts outside of our list if they want to, for example. So as far as what was your question in regards to
how do you price? Like, do you price by CPM? Do you price, how do you price? Like by impressions, by placements, by guarantees? How do you price?
We sell in packages, so we don't base the price on like CPM. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you want a CEO spotlight in our magazine. That CEO spotlight is a story about you and your company. It's branded content, essentially. We charge $3,500 for you to be in the magazine. That includes your photo shoot, your hair and makeup if you're a woman, and then it includes ad spend. But it takes into account the production costs, right? So that's not what we base our pricing on, is just CPM, because we like to do things in packages. I don't really like to take on clients that just want like an email blast or geofencing and that's it. I really prefer to do clients or sponsored content that involves that branded content, the whole process. Because then what you end up doing is giving them like a client experience, and the ROI to them is more than just about the clicks, because now they've got professional photography, which they can use over and over again in other areas. They've got branded content that they can now leverage on to create more media coverage with other outlets, right? Look at me, I was featured in so-and-so. Then they've also generated some traffic, so some brand awareness around them. And then they've also, we send them, the only thing physical that we send them is like a copy of the front page that they can hang in their office, and now they can feel accomplished and special and all of that. So we like to sell the client experience, not just numbers.
Okay, so and you label, I'm assuming you do on digital, but in print, do you label it as branded content or you do not?
We do not.
Okay,
no.
Yeah, it's tricky because there's some areas that you have to, some areas you're not, and I know there's a fine line, and I appreciate your honesty there. The other part is, what about your cover? Like, if I pay enough, can I be on the cover, or are you strict on your covers in terms of editorial?
I'm pretty strict on the covers. Yeah, I am. I think we only sell about 1 to 2 a year as far as the covers.
Okay.
What I like to reserve the cover for are influencers. And those influencers generate the necessary traffic that I need for some of the other sponsored content. But I will say this, 75% of our content is not sponsored. So it's not like everything we do is sponsored.
Correct.
I'm pretty particular. Like, I'm going to definitely pre-qualify you. The reason why I'll say, hey, you know what, you might want to look an option for paying to play, because some business owners don't know how to pitch themselves. They're terrible writers. So we just kind of come in and help with the process and still earn, but they need to pay for the service, if that makes sense. So I understand what you're saying, but I think some of the rules, if you're digital media versus like a television station, it depends on how you're incorporated. And digital, you can kind of blend the lines. We don't claim to be some journalistic organization. We're more of a content marketing company more than anything else.
And that's the biggest difference. Wow, I could probably talk to you for days. So all right. Okay, so obviously you're aspiring to many entrepreneurs, but I have to guess that to female entrepreneurs, I would think you might be a bit more of an inspiration, because you seem to have, you're following your dreams and your passion. So what specifically do you have as far as advice to young, budding, aspirational female entrepreneurs?
You know, for me, I would say ignorance was bliss in a way, right? So the logical person to me would say, look, before you start a business, have a plan, know where you're going, have that, strategy set in place. But sometimes you can get lost in that strategy or overthinking things. So what's really worked out for me is to just dream crazy big. Dream so big it freaks you out that you're like, where are these thoughts and these ideas coming from? I very much believe that thoughts become things. And so I'm really big on vision boards, and every year putting together vision boards for my personal life and family and the things that I want in health and fitness. And then I've got another vision board as far as the company, and I'm staring at the vision board right now, and one of the quotes that I can read is, I am fearlessly me, and that is my superpower. I have another thing on my vision board that says 10 steps to writing a book and getting it published. So I'm in the middle of actually writing the book, how the new women millionaires do business. And so these images are constantly imprinting on my subconscious. So I would tell women to just go for it. If they want to do something, if they're dreaming about something, whatever it may be, that's your purpose. That's your calling. You cannot ignore that voice. I very much believe that. So I'm getting chills talking about it. And I think about the vision of my company and where I'm going and the impact and the legacy I want to create. I think that's what I was meant to do. That's why I'm so pulled by it. So building a business shouldn't feel like pushing. It shouldn't feel agitating and like a grind. I mean, you're going to have difficult times and you're going to have challenges. Don't get me wrong. But you will be pulled, and you will not be able to explain the pull. The Pull, right? Yeah. You're just pulled to do it. So if you're pulled to do it, you have to. You owe it to yourself, because I think that's what your purpose is. And the world needs your purpose, whatever that may be. The world needs that. That's why you've been called to do it. So I just advise women to go after what they want, especially in today's era. I feel like it's a super exciting time to be a female and a female entrepreneur. This is the time for us to really make a difference for the next generation. So, we don't win by playing small. And I know that it's scary to play big, and I know that people get intimidated or sort of question, why are you playing so big as a woman? You need to play big. I mean, one of the reasons why we have so many challenges as women is because we aren't playing big enough.
That's true, and you're limited by your not just your aspiration, but your effort. So listen, I knew this was going to be good. I mentally allocated I think 20 minutes for this. We're just south of 50 minutes, and candidly, we've probably gone for a lot longer. So this is not done. We'll talk a little bit offline afterwards. And I believe New Theory and her magazine are contemporaries, and I believe we can grow strongly together. And you're an amazing entrepreneur. You're an amazing person, and we're happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, all right, number one, you killed it, but that was expected, right? So,